Hi, I'm Joel Harband from Tuval Software. This video should be very interesting for e-learning and training course developers and managers. It introduces a new model for interactive narration in e-learning and training courses that can result in better learning and retention by students. The video has 4 parts. First, we'll view a storyline presentation which discusses the pros and cons of narration in e-learning, introduces the new model for interactive narration, and shows how it applies to different types of e-learning. The presentation is built with the model of interactive narration, and we'll use it to demo the interactive narration features. Second, we'll look under the hood to see how the narration model is implemented in the storyline. We'll look at a template for interactive narration and see how it works with storyline layers and triggers. Third, we'll see how SpeechOver creates a complete narration package in PowerPoint, including segmented audio narration, subtitles, and notes. Finally, we'll describe the interface between PowerPoint, SpeechOver, and Storyline, and show how to import the narration easily from PowerPoint to Storyline. Hi, I'm Joel Harband from Tuval Software. I'd like to tell you about a new model for adding narration in e-learning courses that can produce more effective learning and retention. Narration in e-learning has gotten a bad name, and that's unfortunate, since narration, when used correctly, can improve learning and retention by a lot. On the next few slides, Tracy and Rod will present the pros and cons of adding narration to e-learning courses, quoting experts in the field. After that, they'll present our new model for adding narration, which has the advantages of narration while eliminating many of the objections. The main idea of the new model is that it gives learners control of the narration. The narration seek bar lets learners skip parts of the narration, concentrate on others, go backwards and forwards, and repeat sections. In addition, learners can vary the speed of the narration to a rate that is comfortable for them. The model is implemented in Articulate Storyline and SpeechOver.
Let's look at the reasons for adding narration to e-learning courses, following the book of Richard Mayer, E-Learning and the Science of Instruction. People learn with 2 parallel channels, the visual pictorial channel and the auditory verbal channel. There is considerable evidence that using audio narration rather than on-screen text can result in significant learning gains. The reason is that the incoming information is split across 2 separate cognitive channels, words in the auditory channel and pictures in the visual channel, rather than concentrating both words and pictures in the visual channel. This distinction is especially important when the narrator explains a graphic. Learning is more effective when the visual channel focuses on viewing the graphic and the auditory channel focuses on listening to the narrated explanation. If the narration is replaced by text, the learning is much less efficient since the learner has to look at both the graphic and the text at the same time, which overloads the visual channel. On the other hand, sometimes it is appropriate to display text together with the narration without overloading the visual channel. For example, short topic headings or the steps of a procedure can support the narration. Each text is highlighted as the topic or step is discussed in the audio and illustrated with a graphic. Finally, if there is no concurrent picture or other visual input, it is appropriate to place text on the screen without any narration.
Professor Mayer recommends dividing a continuous lesson into bite-sized segments for better understanding. For example, into a sequence of subtopics or procedural steps. The narration for the lesson would also be divided into sections, corresponding to the subtopics or procedural steps. As we will see later on, SpeechOver makes it easy to produce narration clips that are associated with a sequence of topics or steps. Segmenting a lesson is very important for interactive learning, where the learner can select certain subtopics for extra study and review.
Another reason that narration is more effective than reading text is that the narrator can emphasize certain words and phrases in a sentence to bring out its exact meaning. For example, take the sentence, "I never said she ate your sandwich." The meaning of this sentence changes depending on which word the speaker accents. I never said she ate your sandwich. 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 And so on. It is not easy to achieve this with punctuation in written text. Notice how a text-to-speech voice like mine can emphasize individual words in a sentence. In addition, a narrator can stress the subjects that are important to learn. As college students know, for difficult material, reading the text is much easier once you have heard it explained in a lecture.
A voice establishes an emotional and personal connection and presence, which can motivate learning, especially when the narration is in a conversational style, like a tutor or guide, as Professor Mayer says in his book.
Finally, a narrator holds the learner's attention and leads them along at a definite pace, which imposes a discipline that can make the learning more efficient. Reading text alone, the mind can wander, and the e-learner really needs self-discipline to focus on the material.
Interaction, asking the instructor questions, and participating in discussions is an important part of learning in a classroom. Today's interactive e-learning tools like Storyline afford an opportunity to introduce interactive narration in e-learning. More about that later.
You may be asking yourselves, if narration is so good, why have the experts banished it from e-learning? Let's see the reasons against narration in e-learning, as described by the experts. Kathy Moore says, the pace of the narration controls the pace of the material. When you're learning from narrated material, you can't easily skim stuff you already know, or slow down and concentrate on the challenging parts, because the voice continues relentlessly at a pace that someone else established. In other words, the advantage of narration that it sets a pace and imposes discipline is good, as long as the pace can be controlled by individual learners. The learner needs to be able to skip some parts and concentrate on other parts according to their needs.
The recommended solution is to segment the narration into subtopics or procedural steps, as Professor Mayer suggests. Then, the learner can access any section interactively according to their learning needs. This is an important part of our model, which we will discuss later.
Another issue with narration is when the entire narration text appears on the screen. Says Kathy Moore, learners will read more quickly to themselves than your narrator can read to them, interfering with the learner's ability to process the information. Professor Mayer would say that it causes a conflict between the visual and audio channels of learning.
The solution recommended by Professor Mayer is to remove the text from the screen and replace it by condensed script bullet points or topic titles, similar to the bullet points in a live presentation, and to provide subtitles for the text being spoken. That way, the learner can't read the head of the narrator, but is still able to read any words he might have missed. In addition, a copy of the complete narration text should be available, say in the notes pane, for those who prefer it.
Says Tom Kuhlman, producing good audio narration takes time, and doing it right costs money. You need to write, rehearse, and approve scripts that sound like real people talking. If you don't have the resources, it's better to skip it than doing it wrong or wasting time.
One way of reducing cost and time in adding narration is to use Tuval speech over voice-over narration software. SpeechOver's text-to-speech voices let course developers eliminate microphone recording and voice talents entirely or use them in the final version only.
I am happy to report that we have developed a model for narration in e-learning that keeps its advantages while eliminating the objections. The model gives the learner more control over the narration. We call it interactive narration. The basic idea of the model is to break up or segment the slide narration into parts or sections, where each part is associated with a text bullet, graphic, and narration segment. The same model applies to many different types of learning presentations, to a series of topics, to a system and its parts, and to a step-by-step procedure. The presentation you are now viewing is an example of the model applied to a series of topics.
The model lets the learner control the pace of the narration with the narration seek bar. There are two modes of operation: sequential and interactive. When first learning the material, the learner will want to go over the topics in their order, sequentially. The play button provides this functionality. Clicking the play button plays all the topics in order. After going over the material the first time, the learner will want to revisit topics selectively and interactively, concentrating on difficult parts and skipping others. The skip buttons provide this functionality. They let learners skip parts of the narration, go backwards and forwards, and repeat parts. The rewind button lets learners restart the same section, and the stop button stops the narration and returns to the beginning of the slide.
The speed button lets learners adjust the narration speed to a rate that is comfortable for them. There are two speed levels: normal, about 150 words per minute, and fast, about 190 words per minute.
The model displays the text currently being spoken as subtitles. Subtitles display all the narration text on the screen in a way that learners can't read ahead of the narrator, so there is no conflict between visual and audio channels. The subtitles are located at the bottom of the screen, next to the seek bar.
The complete narration text is available in the star relay notes for learners who prefer to read it rather than listen to it.
This model is easily implemented in Articulate Storyline, which provides the tools for creating and operating the seek bar and the interactive narration, together with SpeechOver narration software, which divides the slide narration into sections, associates them with text bullets or graphics, produces the subtitles, and writes the narration text to the notes pane.
Before going on, let's give you a little demo of what this slide was talking about. We'll play it, and first of all, we'll say like we're reviewing. We've gone over it once, and now we're going to go back and select different sections to look at. First of all, we're going to choose the speed as fast, okay, and start the slide.
I am happy to report that we have developed a model for narration in e-learning that keeps its advantages while eliminating the objections. The model gives the learner more control over the narration.
Skip forward.
We call it interactive narration. The basic idea of the model is to break up or segment the slide narration into parts or
The model lets the learner control the pace of the narration with a narration seek.
The speed button lets learners adjust the narration speed to a rate that is comfortable for them.
The model lets the learner control the pace of the narration with a narration seek.
The basic idea of the model is to break up or segment the slide narration into parts or sections, where each part is associated with a text bullet. Correct. The basic idea of the model is to break up or segment the slide narration into parts or sections, where each part is associated with a text bullet, graphic, and narration segment. The same model applies to many different types of learning
The model lets This model is easily implemented in Articulate Storyline, which provides the tools for creating and operating the seek bar and The interactive narration, together with speech-over narration software, which divides the slide narration into sections.
That gives you a good feeling of how we can interactively go from section to section, any order, backwards, forwards, repeat sections, anything you want to make the review process easier. Now let's go on to the next two slides. One shows a system and its parts, how this narration model applies to it, and after that, a procedural. Let's look at that. Go back to the slower speed. No, stay with the high speed. Okay.
The example presentation on this slide illustrates our new model for interactive narration in e-learning for a system and its parts. The narration includes a general description of the system and separate descriptions for each numbered part, where each narration is coordinated with a graphic for the part. Clicking on the play button lets the narration run through the sections in order, and the skip buttons access individual narration sections in any order. The cooling system is made up of the coolant in the passages inside the engine, a water pump to circulate the coolant, a radiator to cool the coolant, a thermostat to control the temperature of the coolant, a radiator cap to control the pressure in the system, and interconnecting hoses to transfer the coolant from the engine to radiator and also to the car's heater system. A water pump is a simple device that will keep the coolant moving as long as the engine is running. It is usually mounted on the front of the engine and turns whenever the engine is running. The radiator core is usually made of flattened aluminum tubes with aluminum strips that zigzag between the tubes. These fins transfer the heat in the tubes into the airstream to be carried away from the vehicle. On each end of the radiator core is a tank, usually made of plastic, that covers the ends of the radiator. The thermostat is simply a valve that measures the temperature of the coolant, and if it is hot enough, opens to allow the coolant to flow through the radiator. The radiator pressure cap is a simple device that will maintain pressure in the cooling system up to a certain point. There are several rubber hoses that connect the components of the cooling system. The main hoses are called the upper and lower radiator hoses. These two hoses are approximately 2 inches in diameter, and they direct coolant between the engine and the radiator.
Back to normal speed.
The example presentation on this slide illustrates our new model for interactive narration in e-learning for a step-by-step procedure. The narration includes separate descriptions for each step, where each narration is coordinated with a graphic for the step. Clicking on play lets the narration run through the steps in order, and the skip buttons access individual narration sections in any order. Look under your vehicle in the morning to see if there's any liquid on the ground below the hood. If you see liquid, stick your finger in it and smell it. If it's coolant, green, red, blue, orange.
Feel the underside of the radiator to see if it is leaking. And look around your radiator for whitish deposits or rust-colored stains. These indicate old leaks that have dried, but they may not be that old. Water tends to evaporate quickly on a hot radiator.
If your vehicle overheats easily, the cheapest remedy is to buy a new safety cap, or ask a mechanic to pressure test your cap to see if it's functioning properly. If you need a new one, give the salesperson the make, model, and year of your vehicle. Check the pressure limits on the new cap against the manual to make sure you get the right one.
Regularly check all the hoses under the hood of your vehicle, whether or not you've been having trouble. For instant panic, there's nothing like having a hose burst while you're driving. If it's a radiator hose, the resulting shower of steam is frightening at best and dangerous at worst. If a vacuum hose goes, the sudden loss of vacuum can stop your vehicle in the midst of traffic. Checking the hoses and replacing the bad ones before they leak can save your nerves and your pocketbook.
Now let's see how our interactive narration model is implemented in Articulate Storyline. All three types of learning we have seen have the same implementation. We have storyline templates available for each of the 3 types that you can download and use. Let's look under the hood, so to speak, and see how the interactive narration is constructed. I want to show you this in enough detail that you'll be able to adapt the templates to your own use and your own learning applications. We are looking at the 6 topics template in Storyline. The interactive narration is implemented with storyline layers and triggers. Let's look at its layer structure. On the right, under the slide layers, you see the base layer and 2 sets of 7 layers. The base layer also has the seek bar. Here it is, with the play button and the speed button are active. This is what we see when the presentation is in the stopped state. We also see the topic markers in their invisible state. The 7 layers have the narration sections on them. Layer 1 for the slide title, and the remaining 6 layers for the 6 topics. There are 2 sets of 7 layers, 1 set for normal speed narration and 1 set for fast speed narration. When a layer is shown, the narration for that topic is played. Each layer can also have a graphic that shows when the narration plays. Each layer has a seek bar that has all the buttons active except for the speed button, which is replaced by the rewind button. The speed button is only available on the base layer. When the play button on the base layer is clicked, the first narration layer is shown and played. When the first narration is finished, its timeline ends. The second narration layer is shown and played. The speed toggle determines which set of layer is played, normal or fast. For example, look at the trigger section on the right. When I select the play button, as start over it, I see that it has a trigger that plays either layer 1 or layer 1 fast, depending on the setting of the speed button. Now look at layer 1. Look at the timeline display below. You see the narration, which has the audio track and the subtitle track. Click on the subtitle track, we see the subtitle is selected on the screen. This is the narration you hear when the play button is clicked. This narration audio and text box are placeholders in the template. In an actual project, they are replaced by the actual audio and subtitles. Each layer has a seek bar with all of the buttons active. Each button triggers an action. Pause pauses the timeline. Next hides this layers and shows the next layer. There too. It's played. And also the markers on the base layer are adjusted according to which layer is being played. Now look at layer 7, which is the last layer. When the timeline finishes, control returns to the base layer. Notice that each layer has a placeholder for a graphic, which will appear when the narration is played. Instead of a static graphic, you can, of course, create animated time graphics on a layer with the Storyline tools. The basic idea is on each slide to provide the successful combination of text titles, topic titles, audio narration, and illustrative graphics to the learner for each layer or topic. This is how it works in a nutshell. For a specific project, you copy the narration and the subtitles onto the layer, replacing the placeholders, and you copy any graphics you want to appear with the narration for that layer. There are templates available for different numbers of topics from 3 to 6, and there's a template for a system and parts, and a template for a step-by-step procedure. The templates are easy to adapt to your own learning applications. You may need to add or remove layers as needed. Now I'll show you the interface between PowerPoint and the storyline, how we create the narration audio, subtitles, and notes text with speechover in PowerPoint, import them into storyline, and copy them onto the layers. For each slide in storyline, there is a corresponding slide in PowerPoint. It creates and maintains the narration for the slide with speechover. You are seeing a PowerPoint slide from the storyline presentation we saw previously. The slide has 6 topics as a bulleted list. Narration clips have been created by speechover for each of the topics. You see the topics over here on the right side in the clip organizer. These are the clips. For example, let's open the first clip. Here's the content of the first clip. You can see the text inside the speechover editor. This text is the text that is read as narration, also displayed as subtitles, and written into the notes pane. Storyline imports all the PowerPoint animation effects for the narration clips. Let's look at the animation pane for these narration clips. The animation effect for each topic title, these are the topic titles, is followed by its audio and subtitle effects. For example, let's take the topic title 2 channels according to the first topic. That's followed by its audio. Got the audio for that one, and its subtitles, which are all labeled. Here there are 11 subtitle boxes for this particular topic, and they're all labeled in order as subtitles. In addition to the animation effects, the slide notes pane containing all the narration text for the slide is also copied to the storyline notes pane. Note that all the effects are listed in playing order of the topics, 2 channels, segmenting, etc. This order is preserved when importing these animation effects to storyline, and it lets you identify the narration sections in storyline. There are 2 additional settings which are necessary for the narration to work in storyline. These settings in PowerPoint are done easily with speechover. First, you have to set all the narration clips to play in parallel by setting the animations to with previous. This causes the narration sections to start from the beginning of the timeline in storyline, which makes it easy to copy them to the beginning of the timeline in each layer. You do this automatically in speechover by setting trigger with for the effect trigger with previous, and the speech trigger with visual. This is in the animation preferences for speechover. And then you refresh the slide. Also, make sure there are no delays in the clips. Second, the subtitles have to be positioned to the right, as you see they are with respect to the screen, so that they will not interfere with the seek bar in storyline, which is on the left side. The position of this subtitles is controlled by the general preference settings, where you can choose subtitle width, subtitle align, subtitle width 60% of the screen. Subtitle align is right justified. Now I'll show you how to transfer the narration to Storyline by importing this PowerPoint slide into Storyline. Tip: before importing a PowerPoint slide to Storyline, remember to save the presentation first. We'll proceed as follows. Select the template slide in Storyline to which you want to import the narration. We'll use the 6-topic template since it matches the 6-topic slide. Right-click, click New Slide, and select Import from PowerPoint. Select the presentation, the slide, and the current scene. Okay, so we do this. Selecting the template, New Slide, PowerPoint, the presentation, open. Now we select the slide that we want, which is that one. Select current scene and import. Okay, here's the slide that we've imported. It's appearing right now. Let's look at the imported slide timeline. On the new slide, you see all the narrations in order, but starting from the bottom, reverse order from the order in PowerPoint. The first narration appears here, at the bottom, together with its subtitle boxes. Now we have 2 subtitles. And now if we go up, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 narrations, groups, each one with its audio and its subtitle boxes. Notice that the PowerPoint labels for the subtitles, which are all numbered, are not carried over to Storyline, and they appear again with the label of text box. I recommend labeling the audios with a numerical sequence to avoid confusion. Here I relabeled audio 1, audio 2. Do that for up till audio 7. Now we just have to copy each narration group with its audio and its subtitles from the imported slide to the template, where each audio 1, 2, 3, maps into the layer 1, 2, 3, etc. of the narration of the template. Let's look at the template. Let's go now down to layer 1. Layer 1, it will be the target. We want to copy the narration and replace the audio and text box placeholders in layer 1. So first we select, using the Shift key, select the placeholders, delete, remove them. Now we go back down to our source, go to audio 1, with the Shift key we select the narration audio in and the subtitles up to the start of the next audio. Control X to remove it entirely. Go up to layer 1 in the template. Control V. There we go. Our narration has been copied into the first layer. Now there's two steps, additional small steps we have to do. One is to extend few seconds, 3 seconds I use. After the end of the audio, it'll be a 3-second delay before the timeline ends and it goes to the next layer. The next step, as I mentioned before, the subtitles. Storyline doesn't keep the font size. You have to select the entire subtitle boxes, or boxes, which you can do at once. Okay, in the home, let's see it here. Go down. In the home section of Storyline, see it says 8.5. Go to 10. Make it bigger, and that now you fix the problem with the. So in each time you copy, you have to do those 2 steps. Let's do one more example. Go back to the import. And we'll do the next audio 2. Audio 2 has quite a few subtitles. So we go up to the last one, which is the next audio. And then we do Shift, and that got all of them. Okay, now I do Control X, which removes them. Go back up here, Layer 2, remove placeholder, Control V, and that mapped everything. Okay. And that's it. And then you do the 2 additional fixes of adjusting the timeline and adjusting the font size, and you're finished. Let's not forget to copy the notes from the imported file, and down at the imported file is the notes. Take them all, Control C, go back up here, these are the notes, the template, Control V. Now we copied all the notes. That's it. Now when this presentation is developed, these notes will show in the storyline. The next step is to take all the topic headings, topic titles from the imported slide, and copy them into the template, replacing the placeholders there. Okay, here I did that, and remember this takes place on the base layer where the topics were. And now I've copied in the titles, and you can see now that the markers are lining up exactly with the titles, because the titles take 2 lines. That's exactly what the markers are set up for. Of course, if the titles are such that the markers don't exactly match, you just select them individually and move them up and down. I just want to say that Storyline has an option to align, distribute vertically. So it's what you do is select all the markers after you've got them more or less in the right place, and do this align vertically, distribute vertically, and they'll be perfectly matched. Make a nice appearance. The final thing is that the graphics, which go on each layer. Here I didn't say anything about it, but at this point you go, either you have them imported from PowerPoint, or you just import them directly into Storyline from a source of pictures or any kind of graphics that would illustrate the topic, the discussion in the topic. Now I'll tell you how to set up the option for varying the narration speed, normal and fast. As we already saw, there are two sets of layers in the storyline template. One layer for normal speed, one set for normal speed, and one set for the fast speed. The idea is to generate two sets of narration clips in PowerPoint, each with a different speed, and import them to Storyline, one set at a time. Proceed as follows. Generate the normal speed in the SpeechOver. Go to the SpeechOver TTS's voices setup. Here it is. It's under Preferences TTS Voices. And for each voice, we have the rate. So what you do is you set the rate to 0 with the slider. Okay. Now you do save and exit, and you do refresh the current slide, and that will regenerate all the clips with the slower speed. This speed of 0 corresponds to 150 words per minute. This is the normal speed in the presentation that we saw in the first part of this video. The next step is to import the slide to Storyline as we did before, and copy the narrations to the layers for the normal speed. After that, to set up the fast speed, you go back to PowerPoint and into the setup that we had before, the voices setup. Set the voice speed to a higher level. The level of 2, which corresponds to 190 words per minute, was used for the fast speed in the presentation that we saw in the first part of the video. So you could use that. Refresh the slide, save the presentation, import to Storyline, and copy the narrations to the layers for the fast speed. If the 2 is a little bit too fast, 190, you can use 1 for a fast speed, which is 170, or you could use 3, which is 210. Now let's look at the quality settings when publishing your Storyline project. Because the audio narration from SpeechOver is generated with audio bitrate of 96 kbps, you need to set the audio bitrate on the Storyline Publish dialog, the Publish Quality screen, to 96 kbps as shown, instead of the default of 48 kbps. Otherwise, there may be some distortion of the voices. To summarize, I've demonstrated a new and effective model for using narration in e-learning. I showed how the model is applicable to 3 types of learning: topics, system, and procedure. The model is implemented in Articulate Storyline, and there are templates available for downloading. Finally, I showed you how to generate and maintain the narration in PowerPoint with SpeechOver, and how to import it to Storyline to achieve interactive narrations. Thank you.